I should have taken more notice. But I didn't. I was more concerned about me and not them.
And if you could summarize in just one sentence what took place September 1994 here at Ariel School, Ruwa, Zimbabwe, what would you say?
Aliens visited us. And that's about it, yeah. And that's why if you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, well.
Chris Lado, welcome to Lado Files. Okay, it's been 30 years basically. This happened in 1994 at a rich private school in Zimbabwe, 16 September 1994. It was an intense time in Zimbabwe, political and economic changes. The Ariel School was known for its diverse student body. It was in Ruwa, which is just 20 kilometers from Harare. The primary witnesses were 62 students aged between 6 and 12 years old. They were playing outside during their 15-minute break while the teachers were actually inside in a meeting. Ruwa is just a small little town, barely even a town. It's just named after a agricultural area. There were sightings going on in the previous days. Skeptics say were parts of a spacecraft, human spacecraft actually, coming back into the atmosphere and burning up. So most of the students were from rich families. They had many diverse backgrounds. During a 15-minute break, all the adults were inside having a meeting, and that's when one of the children came back and said, hey, there's aliens landing in a field near the school. One of, again, these 62 children. Links in the description to the full video documentary if you want to watch it here. Let's check it out. Thanks for being here.
Hind, Leach, and Mack interviewed 60 kids between the ages of 6 and 12, and they all said they had seen at least one UFO.
Okay, so these were the initial investigators. Unfortunately, they are all dead. So late journalist Tim Leach, he was a former BBC cameraman in Harare, and he was head of the Foreign Correspondents Association in Zimbabwe. So he was one of the first to be tipped off about the Ruwa encounter, and he called Cynthia Hind. Cynthia Hind was a famous South African ufologist, and Leach asked if she'd be willing to visit the school with him. So they both went there just 4 days after the event to actually interview all the kids. So Hind and Leach interviewed 60 kids, and they did it in small groups of children on camera. One girl said she thought the being was an alien from a different planet. Hind wrote that Leach asked the children if the spacecraft they'd seen might have been a Zimbabwe Air Force helicopter or a Harrier jump jet. The children were adamant that the craft they saw was unfamiliar to them. Then 4 months later, John Mack, famous Harvard psychiatrist, actually went in November, and he did follow-on interviews with the children. Skeptical argument is that John Mack gave leading questions, and that's where the telepathic communication actually came from. Skeptical argument is that Hind and Leach didn't actually talk about telepathic communication, and it was actually Mack who mentioned that. So, did the kids actually imagine some sort of telepathic communication? Not sure. Well, let's listen to a few of the kids' actual accounts, and then there are later accounts, actually, that we'll go into.
Something scared you, was that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the air? What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum, or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute. It was scary myself.
You were scary because you saw something yourself?
I saw a little object hovering. It was quite big, actually, and there was little ones all around it. He saw something silver, and we quickly ran to the logs, and we saw a silver thing, and we saw a man standing next to it.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
Felt scared to lose.
Okay, I think this is Salma Siddiq. She was actually on UFO podcasts and in the Ariel Phenomenon movie. So we'll see her testimony as an adult. So she said she was scared. And what was scary about it, Mack's going to ask.
It felt scared? What was scary about it?
I felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
Did you see the eyes? What did they look like?
They were angry, lately.
Where was the pointy part? Was the pointy part in here, or was the pointy part up there? And what was the feeling when you looked at the eyes?
It was scary.
Mm-hmm. And what was scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes looked evil.
Evil. Mm-hmm. And what was evil about them? Say what you mean by evil.
It looks evil because it was just staring at me.
Mack was a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. One little girl who Mack interviewed, named Haley, said that what caught her attention was a strange sound. According to the girl, the spacecraft sounded like someone blowing a flute. Some kids said they heard a buzzing sound, like bees or electricity. Several said they saw a shiny object fly through the sky and land near some trees. That was when the kids rushed over to find out what it was. It was at this point, the kids said, they saw two small figures dressed in skin-tight black bodysuits come out of the ship. The figures were maybe 4 feet tall. Their faces were thin, pale, and almost plasticky, and they had 2 huge black eyes. The first figure stayed with the ship, and the second one ran through the grass. In one of John Mack's interviews, a student described the figure running as bouncy, as if a human would run on the moon. Several other children said it looked like he was running in slow motion. Finally, the figure stopped in front of them. Many of the kids ran at this point, but some, mostly older kids, stayed and watched as the aliens came closer. Maybe they were paralyzed with fear or were just curious, but for some reason, they just stood and watched the aliens. A girl called Lucille, who was 12 years old at the time, felt like she was stuck. She couldn't move. She felt time and space around her warp, and her ears were ringing louder and louder. Suddenly, she saw visions of some sort of apocalyptic event on Earth. She saw people screaming as their cities were on fire. Millions of trees burned down to ashes, oceans boiling hot, and destruction all over. Another child was standing next to Lucille. She was watching in silence. She tried to move, but couldn't. She knew she wasn't stuck, but at the same time, she couldn't move.
So according to the kids in the trance, it seemed like only a minute or two passed, but really it was 15 minutes. So the bell rang, the break was over, and according to John Mack, the children talked about the creature's big black eyes and that they just couldn't look away from them, like they were captured in some sort of trance or something. According to Mack as well, the kids telepathically communicated with the aliens, and it was specifically about how the Earth is falling apart or being destroyed. Let's listen to it here.
In Mack's interviews, one 5th grader tells how he was warned about something that's going to happen and that pollution mustn't be. An 11-year-old girl told Mack, "I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world, and we mustn't get too technologed." One child said that he was told that the world would end because they are not taking care of the planet.
Okay, skeptics have argued that Hind and Leach actually didn't bring this up, right? There was no telecommunication, no telepathic communication. Hind did ask, did you recognize any of the planes? And the children said, yeah, it's definitely not like a helicopter or a plane. But as far as the telepathic communication, skeptics argued that it's coming from Mack, right? He asked these leading questions. And did they actually communicate with you, and how? Other kids said the descriptions could have looked like demons. They came from diverse backgrounds, etc.
I couldn't hear that, but the floor was quite full and never since the platform. And his eyes his shirt like and from swimming around down there. So I went down to see what was happening. And I actually saw this crawl out in the trees. And it was like in a multi-way pattern on end, like silver and green and that sort of color. And then there was this little boy crying, so I went up to him to see what was wrong with him, and he said he was quite afraid of it. And then that actually made me quite afraid of it, because when somebody's afraid, I get afraid. And then I saw this person, and his eyes were like in a slant, like say like so, and his mouth was just like a line, like this. And then at the time, the teachers were in a staff meeting. So nobody actually went up to go and call the teachers because I think they were too afraid and everything. So when the bell rang, because somebody eventually went up, one of the prefects went and said to one of our teachers, Mr. Vernon, please tell me can you ring the bell, because there's quite a lot of payments down there before the kid running around. And then somebody from BBC came to us, and he went for a walk down there with us with a guide account. And actually on that piece of metal over there, he could stand up on it, and we could actually see the huge burn mark. So he asked us when we were walking down there with him, said, please could you come down with us to go and have a look at their things. So when we walked about, if there's about 6 pollen, and if you have a look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there were burn marks actually on the ground. And then he was there on the rock. Yeah, it's the day that happened, there was something glittering, like quite strongly. And then when we came back to school the next day, it was just gone. And also, we went down with the burn marks. We had just found that like a few minutes later.
How long did you observe this whole happening?
I think it was about 5.5 minutes when we went down there, because it was actually quite scary.
Okay, so interesting account here. That's not like a 6-year-old kid, right? That kid looks 12. And, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I'm pretty sure I could take her account at her word. She wouldn't think it's a helicopter, or as Mick West has proposed, that it is a traveling band of welders, someone wearing a welder mask. Could have been like a caravan of welders or circus folk, as he has argued. Could they be tricked? Could these kids be tricked by, some traveling circus or something? But this kid seems pretty knowledgeable, right? It'd have to be a pretty elaborate hoax to convince 62 kids if they're standing in different locations, etc. The other thing he mentions is that he talks about the burn marks. So Hind and Leach did have Geiger counters, and supposedly there was no radiation actually detected. They both tested the area for radiation, and there was no evidence of excessive radiation. That was also, I believe, 4 days after the event. So this kid says that there was 6 burn marks, so burn holes, actually in the ground, and he saw where it landed in the trees. So he should have brought the man he's referencing here right to the spot, and then they noted the actual burn marks, but no Geiger counter. So no evidence. And he said they did have a Geiger counter. So it sounds like this is Hind and Leach, most likely, is who he's leading out to the site.
Well, I was at the tech shop of the day, and when I surfaced the cloud enough after the site. So I went there, and I looked, and I saw this ship, and it had this light like a pattern, yellow, purple, and green. It would keep on going around, and then there was something running across, and some of the ship that moon. So when I looked more down, when I looked on like straight vision, with lots of people, see some like alien thing. He had big eyes, like what I was saying here. Do you agree with the other two that the eyes were protruding, the mouth was rather thin and very small, and it was about how tall would you say? He made me about 3.5 feet. If I do agree with the other description, yeah.
So I believe that was Hind doing the actual interview. So 4 days after the event, and those kids are not 6-year-old kids. Those are 12-year-old kids. Seem pretty certain what they saw, 3.5 feet tall. Skeptics argue about the Mandela effect. So mass hysteria. They think the kids had mass hysteria, which is basically you remember something happening a certain way. You swear by it when it didn't happen after Mandela. Or people think he died in prison in the 1980s, but he actually passed away in 2013. So apparently that's where the Mandela effect actually comes from. Okay, so now let's reference a more recent interview. This is still from 2018, and this is Salma Siddiq. She was one of those girls who actually interviewed, and now she talks with UFO podcast live show. So my friend Martin Willis, this was on his channel. Again, link in the description to check out her full interview. We'll just cover a short section of it. And this is Randall Nickerson. 2007, he made the Ariel Phenomena documentary, which just came out, I believe, in 2021, and it's done very well. So let's check out what Salma says here.
Sure. I guess, summary of it, just because I've spoken about it so much. And it's not that I mind, it's that I honestly have to get into a mindset to do that, because I don't dwell on it every day. So
Yes.
it's almost like I have to get into a meditative state to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Which is probably why I spent
And you
most of the day in the hotel room today.
Yeah, you got to get ready for tomorrow. You're going to be talking
I
about.
really, really am.
Yeah.
But basically, in a nutshell, we were having our recess. I was 11 years old in a rural town of Zimbabwe called Ruwa. The school used to be a farm, so it was a pretty rural school and very small at the time. It was very still fairly new. So I think Randall told me that they weren't more than 200 students. I thought it was 3, but I think it was 280 or something.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So not a lot. So our classes were pretty small. But we were having recess, and I was with my usual friends, as you do. We're eating our lunch, and we saw something shiny a ways away in the bush. It was pretty much bush, because apart from the playground, it's a savanna region, so there was very tall grass, and a lot of trees, and a lot of like koppies, which I guess are like it's a very like a stony hill, so a lot of granite rock. So we saw something shiny over on these koppies, and then it was flashing. You could see it, and then you couldn't see it, or it could have actually been flashing. We couldn't. I still don't know today. But it was incredibly, incredibly bright, and very different from anything we had seen before. And then my friend, who I was standing next to, she and I saw like a being, I guess. And if there were multiple beings, I don't know, but they all looked exactly the same. And
Did you actually walk toward the object?
we did not walk towards the object. We walked toward the barrier of the playground, which is sort of where the being was, but not cross the barrier. We didn't cross the barrier. So it was really a lot of, we were inquisitive. What is this? I don't know what this is. And it's sort of, any human being is going to try and rationalize what it is that they're seeing. And as an 11-year-old, we couldn't really put into words what it was we were seeing and trying to justify it. And so, it was very in like a human-esque form, but much shorter, really big head, really big eyes. If it did have a nose, couldn't really see it. But also the skin pigmentation was very, very different. It was very odd. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before. And the closest thing that I could compare what it was wearing would be something like a scuba diving suit. It was just very form-fitting, very black, a little shiny at times. But I don't know if that was just the sun. It was a pretty warm day. It was a beautiful day. Every day is beautiful in Zimbabwe, actually. So it was just a very normal day, and then this happened. It was very, very immense, very intense, and clearly has changed my life. So in a nutshell, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so big thing that stuck out to me is colored lights, right? And there was a sound, but she didn't really mention that. She mentioned just a super bright object and kind of flashing or strobing lights. And we seem to get that from, I don't know, most, if not all, UFO sightings seem to be some sort of strange lights and also excessively bright, like brighter than anything you're normally used to looking at. As far as the suits, right, and the skin pigmentation, etc., I wonder if this could be, if it could be an actual suit. And that's the argument that Mick West makes, that it's like a welder's helmet. You know, they could easily be confused by a welder's helmet. You know, but could it even be some sort of suit? Because they're wearing, sounds like scuba diving equipment, as if you're going into a different total atmosphere. Just what I thought of.
Did you walk away when this was happening, or did you stay there until it walked away or turned away or went away?
Yeah, no, I actually broke my eye lock with it because I wanted to go and check on my brother and sister who were much younger and playing in a different part of the playground because I felt that if I was afraid, then they must be terrified too. But there are a lot of other things that happened during this interlocking moment that I go into in my piece tomorrow. But once I let go of my friend's hand and I disconnected from that gaze, which was not an easy thing to do at all, I feel like it took every ounce of effort and energy from me, and I felt absolutely exhausted afterward. I didn't see it again.
Wow. Critics from the last interview I did with you. And
Love
one
critics.
of the people made a really good point.
Sure.
You mentioned that there was no telepathic message to you, and someone wanted to know why you thought there was no telepathic when other people had it.
I think that's a great question. So this is something I've been pondering over, especially since your podcast and in talking more about what happened and being a lot older now, trying to figure some pieces out. I think if I did get a message, I don't remember. So because I don't remember doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I think that the fact that I disconnected this interlocking moment has a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
But honestly, during that moment, I don't know that, and I don't know how long that moment was for. Could
Yeah.
not tell you. My sense of time was completely warped. Everything slowed down, and I couldn't hear a thing. This is a
Wow.
playground full of children. Of
Yeah.
course, there were kids playing on this side, and there were some other kids who were very confused by what was going on, and some started to cry. So there was definitely noise, but I couldn't hear a thing.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
I think me breaking the locked gaze has a lot to do with it, but I don't want to sit here and say that it was easy because it wasn't. I've never felt so tired and drained in all my life.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
And you probably was totally confused by why that was.
Yes, I couldn't this is a very interesting thing that actually I just came into, like I was talking about it yesterday and I was like, my heartbeat in my, you can hear your heartbeat when it's beating
Yeah.
really fast. I definitely had palpitations in that moment, even though everything was slowed down, which
Wow.
was so trippy. I
Yeah.
don't even know how to describe, but I just remembered this yesterday. And so what I'm realizing is as I'm talking more about the incident, which I never really did on this much of a scale before and as in depth, and I'm a lot older and I'm able to, I think, do a lot of inner assessment and outer assessment, that it really it helps me to be able to dig into things that I maybe wasn't ready to tap into before.
Okay, so amazing account. And Randall Nickerson, between 2007 and 2012, he traveled to Zimbabwe and other locations and interviewed 43 former students, teachers, and other witnesses. So some participants were eager to share their experiences, while others were much more hesitant due to fear of the stigma. So the interviews revealed that the witnesses' accounts remained consistent over the years, with many still vividly remembering the encounter. As you see there from Salma, they still maintain that their experiences were genuine. The children described the beings as around 1 meter tall, with pale skin, large heads, dressed in tight, shiny suits, and their large black eyes were particularly memorable and locked you in some sort of gaze like Salma was talking about there. Telepathic messages, which Selma did not receive, right? Maybe because she broke lock, or maybe it was some sort of mass hysteria, were primarily about environmental concerns and the future of the Earth. So the beings seemed to be warning the children about the dangers of environmental degradation and technological misuse. Kind of reminds me of Mario Woods. He had intense nightmares of, world-ending horrors, giant disasters happening, nuclear disasters and other types of disasters after his encounter. So unfortunately, the main investigators have passed, the three main initial investigators, but people like Randall Nickerson interviewing 43 witnesses, making documentaries about this, took him 5 years to do all those interviews. And now we have more interviews coming out on Martin Willis and other UFO podcasts. So go to Martin Willis's channel, link in the description, to see more interviews about this, along with Randall Nickerson himself, lengthy interviews. So amazing case, probably could be the best case what we have right now of a mass sighting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. It really helps and it's free. Consider subscribing to get future notifications of when I release videos. And you might like this video. If you want to support the channel, join these great people over here, get exclusive bonus content, then click this button here, patreon.com/Chris Slato, or become a YouTube member. If you want to continue the discussion, go to UAP Society Discord. Links are all in the description. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.